The only thing that we're interested in is putting money in your wallet. If you want to bet the fights, if you want to have a little bit of action, you are in the right place. With my partner, Ian Parker, I am Brett Okamoto.
We're ready to rock between our parlays, our props, our straight picks. It's time to make money. Let's go.
It has been years in the making. Jon Jones fighting in his home state of New York. It happens at UFC 309. The heavyweight champion, Jon Jones, taking on the greatest heavyweight of all time in Stipe Miocic. And we are here to break it down from a gambling perspective. Hello, everybody. Brett Okamoto alongside my partner, as always, Ian Parker. But because this is such a big card, we got to bring in the big guns, Joe Fortenbaugh, of course, and then Chael Sonnen, who has not only fought Jon Jones, but also fought in Madison Square Garden. I think beat him undefeated, as we all know. So we've really brought in the experts here for your UFC best bets on UFC 309. Quick opening thoughts on just our main event there, Chael.
I ripped this off. I remember throwing it into the second row, and these kids, they were horrified. It was all people were screaming, and I did it anyway. That's the business. He knew what he signed up for.
There is no way to follow that up. I have nothing. That's the lead, that's the middle, that's the conclusion.
Tell it the way it happened.
Kids were horrified.
They were horrified.
I was actually that kid that caught the toe, so I was excited. I sold it on eBay right after, and then that's how I started the whole gambling thing. I used the Jon Jones toe money, so here we are.
Yep, that was a profitable night there for Ian Parker. So was last weekend for Ian Parker. It was actually the most profitable week of Ian Parker's 2024. Go ahead, brag about it, Mr. Parker.
Brett, that was a beautiful transition. I love you for that. We went 4-1 in our best bets. Hanier de Ritter to win in over 1.5 rounds. Bolanos Romeo's over 1.5 rounds. Jillian Robertson, the one blemish inside the distance. She was in mount for 3 minutes. I don't know how she couldn't get it done there. Malik and Todorovic under 1.5. And Raki, money line, easy peasy. 2-0 in our props. We hit our parlay for the third week in a row. Gentlemen, let's go.
Easy peasy indeed. It's going to be hard to top that, but we're going to find a way to do it here at UFC 309 from Madison Square Garden. As always, you can find the pay-per-view on ESPN Plus, 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific. Jon Jones taking on Stipe Miocic. Charles Oliveira, Michael Chandler. Whoo, man, I can't wait to talk about that fight. And then, of course, see it on Saturday. Bo Nickel, Paul Craig. Five-fight main card. As always, we're going to talk about all of these from the betting perspective. And let's go ahead and start with that main event. Ian, I will cede the floor to you first. How are you looking to it's a big line. In fact, it's the biggest line in a heavyweight title fight in UFC history. But you also got the greatest heavyweight champion of all time in Stipe Miocic. He's the dog here. Any interest there in the underdog?
Zero interest in the underdog, zero interest in betting the favorite. Where I really like is over 1.5 rounds. And I mentioned this to Joe last week. If you go ahead and you look at Jon Jones' last 10 fights, outside of Cyril Gane round 1 and DC round 3, everything's gone the distance. And even DC round 3, we're getting over 1.5. I think this fight's going to be so much more competitive than people think. I don't see Jones running through Stipe. Stipe has that heavyweight power. He has the size. He has everything you could possibly do to combat what Jones has. Do we really think Jones is going to go in there and shoot a power double against Stipe down like that? I don't think so. I think if Jones does do it, it's going to be rounds 3 or 4, so over 1.5. That's my play.
And one thing, and I fully agree with you, but one thing about historically when Jon Jones does run through somebody, it involves a takedown. It involves ground and pound. It involves a submission. It's not done on the feet. And I just don't believe that he can get Stipe down. And if he does, I don't believe that he can keep him there. And that's from a common opponent in Daniel Cormier, a training partner, Anthony Smith, that's been in there with Jones and spent plenty of time practicing with Stipe. And that was their take on it. They said, listen, the wrestling's at a minimum going to be nullified.
I don't want to lay $750. Right?
Sure.
There are situations where that price might offer some value, not a fight against one of the greatest heavyweights of all time. You can handicap it any way you want. I'm not interested in that. Also not thrilled with the proposition of betting against Jon Jones, right? I think most people could attest to that as well. But we're going to be sitting there watching this, and I need action. So we've got a bunch of things converging here. We got to figure something out. Ian talking about over 1.5 rounds, I find that very interesting. I think you pick the winner and you pick the round. You take a shot. We have a deep card. We have a lot of angles we can play. In this one, look for the payday. Third round, Jon Jones, 6-1. Downloads the information early, tries to figure it out late, puts them away. At 6-1, I think that's worth the gamble.
One thing the MMA community knows is that Chael Sonnen has never picked a fight wrong in his entire life. So we're getting a real treat here by having him on this show.
Right.
Money on the table. Who are you taking in the main event?
Stipe Miocic. And I got to tell you guys, I flipped. I haven't been there. I really haven't been there until I saw the way Stipe looked. There's a big question on the weight. What's he going to weigh? Not to mention, he's 200. I'm talking about Stipe. He was 233 pounds the last title fight that he had. He is now up 14 pounds, and it's 14 pounds the right way. He looked beautiful, and it's not just that I think that size matter. Jon Jones thinks that size mattered. Jon Jones walked away from a world championship, took 3 years to gain what turned out to be 8.5 pounds because he knows that size is a very real thing. And when he's going to get across from Stipe, at some point he's going to ask himself, this is very hard to do. Look, I've come back from fights having breaks. I've also come back from fights when they took my steroids away, right? When they take the secret sauce away, you will ask yourself a question, can I still do this job at the same level? And you realize, no, of course not. That's why he took it in the first place. John's going to have to answer those questions. He might be able to overcome, but it's a lot, and I'm bringing it to your attention now.
That is a heck of analysis there by Chael Sonnen. I'm going to go to you now,
the way
Ian.
that it happened, and I say nothing more.
Ian, another way to bet this main event, I think, is a method of victory. And I will throw in there that Jon Jones has a very grappling heavy corner on this one. And so would Jon Jones by submission have any interest to you?
If he's going to do it, he has to get behind Stipe in a rare naked choke, or Stipe gets tagged and does a lazy shot with a double where Jones can get his guillotine. He's got a good guillotine. I am a little distracted by Chael's comments. I'm not gonna lie.
As we all are, yes.
So good, so accurate, and so real that it is just, if you guys don't believe it's true, that is Chael in a nutshell. He's spot on. But the submission, I think if it happens by guillotine, I think he can tag Stipe. We've seen Stipe shoot in before. He's got such a good guillotine, Jon Jones, but I got to be honest with you, I don't see a sub happening.
Is there a scenario at all where, I remember handicapping for days Jones's return against Gane, and then like that, it's over. Does that situation exist at all here?
I don't think so.
I do
not believe so.
All right, so we're escaping the first round.
Yes.
That's why I love over 1.5.
And the reason I say that, by the way, Joe, is that was a lack of competitor in Ciryl. Ciryl got caught in the moment. He was very impressed with who he was in there with. Not to mention that's an older guy. That can happen when you take on an older guy. Stipe's taking on a younger guy. He dismisses somebody like this. From a competitive standpoint, I do believe Stipe will show up and bring his best.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, man. Especially with those guys in his corner. I'm going to be interested to see how Jon approaches this fight. It would not surprise me if he was hunting submissions in there. But he might also be hunting 12-6 elbows now that those are legal as well. Let's move to the co-main event. Michael Chandler versus Charles Oliveira. I mean, if this is the fight that you're looking forward to most on the card, I don't blame you whatsoever. Charles Oliveira has got that win, of course, over Michael Chandler from 2021. He is the favorite here. Chael, how are you handicapping this lightweight fight?
I spoke to Chandler, and I got to disclose that because he did influence me. I mean, that was a little bit unfair, but he did influence me, and here's why. He's going to do three things. Michael Chandler has made a deal with himself, and when an athlete makes a deal with himself, it's a very different deal. It's called slowing down the game. Very talked about under baseball terms. When you're in the first round, you're not thinking about the fourth round, or adversely, if you're in the fourth round, you're not thinking about what happened in the first round. Chandler's made a deal. He's going to do three things. Whether that works or not, he's disciplined to doing three different things. And this even got tested. A week ago, it was a troll move, but Oliveira put out that he wasn't going to be showing up for this fight. And a lot of people believed it, including Dustin Poirier, which is who I heard it from. Chandler didn't flinch. Whether they were going to bring in somebody new or Oliveira showed up, Chandler didn't flinch because he's not worried about what the opponent's going to do. In this fight, he is going to go do three things, and you have never seen a disciplined Michael Chandler before.
I got to say, I love that they keep using my body as the graphic with Chandler's face. It's unbelievable. It's like they don't even ask. They just do it now.
I saw that
tattoo. That part's ended on. I don't got one of those, but the six-pack, I'm out of stone. For me, there's only two ways to bet this fight. It's Chandler round one TKO or knockout, or Oliveira inside the distance, because we've seen this time and time again, right? Oliveira gets dropped in round one. If you're too afraid to follow him to the ground, it gives him time to recover. Islam Makhachev went to the ground with him, finished him. When Poirier dropped him, he let him stand back up. Gaethje, Chandler as well. You got to take advantage of when you knock this guy down. Chandler's got the power to do it, but we've seen also as Chandler goes on, against Poirier, he gassed out, he lost. I understand. We've all been talking about Chandler for a very long time. A disciplined Michael Chandler. Does that exist? I don't think it does. I think Oliveira gets it done inside the distance.
That's what's why I'm talking to Chael earlier about this, and he's kind of got me thinking about it because originally plus 120, fight ends in the first round. My thought process is Chandler's been out 2 years. He's been chasing this fight. He's finally back in the octagon. He's in tremendous shape. All gas, no brakes, right? That's what the career has been. And you go back to the first fight, you have a different referee at the end of that. That might get stopped and he's champion of the world. Yep. So you think to yourself, if I was that close, do I just go all gas, I come right at him in this one, and then Oliveira, knowing that's coming, is prepared for it, and we end in the first 5 minutes? You made some excellent points earlier, though. If it is a different Chandler, my mindset's not in the right spot. So plus 120 in the first round is where I'm looking here.
I think that's interesting because I think Chandler believes and means that he's going to fight a different way. When he walks out there with the American flag at Madison Square Garden, I don't know if he's actually going to fight that way.
Excellent
We're going to
point.
say goodbye to these guys very soon. But before we do, we got to get Joe Fortenbaugh's best bet on the card, UFC 309. What do you got?
I hate to go against Jim Miller, but that's the bet. I'm going to go with Damon Jackson there. Miller's 41 years old, and if you watch the price move on this, it has been nothing but money coming in on Jackson. He opens around plus 115 offshore, and you see it go all the way to minus 175, minus 180. It was originally a buy low spot. Now it's kind of right in that target range of where it should be priced. Upwards of minus $2 is where I would play it. But I think you get the buy low there combined with the fact that the last time we saw Miller, he absorbed a lot of damage in that fight. So I think it's an opportunity to go against the guy that everybody loves, which is kind of keeping the price down a little bit. But I would go with Jackson there.
Yeah, that's what you got to do. You got to find those values. You got to find those opportunities. Bet with your head, not your heart kind of deal, right? And if you're getting value there on Damon Jackson, unfortunately, you got to take it against a fan favorite in Jim Miller. Thank you so much to Joe Fortenbaugh and Chael Sonnen. We are going to kick them off the desk. We are going to go the rest of the way with myself and just Ian Parker, and we are going to move through the rest of this UFC 309 main card, starting with the middleweight division. Paul Craig, he is a massive underdog, which is usually the case when you're going up against Bo Nickel. 15-1 on Bo Nickel. How in the world are you going to bet this, Ian?
Two ways. Under 1.5 rounds, Bo Nickel's going to run through Paul Craig. Paul Craig's going to want to pull guard. Nickel's going to say, okay, watch my wrestling. You watch me knock you out. Also, Nickel by TKO or KO. Those are the two plays on that fight.
From there, we go to Vivi Araujo taking on Carini Silva. A very, very good fight there. Carini Silva taking on Vivi Araujo. How are you going to play this one, Ian?
I do like Carini Silva here, minus 300. Let's get that down to have her win in over 1.5 rounds. Bringing that number to minus 143. Let's go.
And then another big favorite here, Mauricio Hupi taking on James Lontop. How are you making sense of this pretty lopsided odds there in this one?
This was very weird because Lontop and him have a catch weight, and then Lontop missed weight at the catch weight. I still like over 1.5 rounds here. Lontop's very durable, very tough. Rufi, a very exciting prospect. Eventually gets it done by KO or TKO, but over 1.5 for that one.
All right, folks, that takes us through the main card, but we also got prelims to talk about. You can find them all over the place this weekend. ESPN News, FX, Hulu, ESPN Plus. You just turn the television on. The 309 prelims are going to be running. Run us through all of your picks, those odds courtesy of ESPN Bet.
Let's go Marcus McGee over Jonathan Martinez. We're going to go Chris Weidman at even money against Eric Anders. I don't understand that at all. I think Weidman is better everywhere. Outside of Anders' strength and power, I think Weidman gets it done. I'm going to echo what Joe said about Damon Jackson here. I'm taking him over Jim Miller. Onama and Romero, no pick. Onama's minus 1,000. If you could get a good number on inside the distance, sure. We're going to go Marcin Tybura. We're going to go Mickey Gall. Elliott to win over 2.5 rounds. And we're going to go Elliott by decision as one of my props as well.
All right, so there you go, the prelim picks. He throws in a prop on there. And then we're going to, we got to have it at a pay-per-view event. It's ESPN's Boosted Parlay. That is where you download the app. You can find this parlay with actually better odds than you would get it anywhere else. It's Parker's Boosted Parlay of the week, and where are we going with it?
We're going to go Bo Nickel to win by KO or TKO, Oliveira to win by submission, and then John Jones and over 1.5 rounds. You go from plus 675 with the boost, plus 800. Let's do it.
I cannot stress enough, if you're going to tail Parker on this, you got to do it on the ESPN Bet app. Download the app now. Must be 21 or older to do so. Love it when we do that because it's just free value. We're searching for value all the time, and you're getting it free there on the ESPN Bet app. All right, how about Parker's parlay for UFC 309?
It's been so nice. Let's do it thrice. We're going to go John Jones, Charles Oliveira, Carini Silva, and Oban Elliott. We're going to go chalky at plus 182. All four favorites just to get it done. No methods. Straightforward. Let's get it.
You've gotten breakdowns from all of our analysts here at UFC Best Bets, so now the only thing left is the best bets, and that's coming from Ian Parker. Where are we going for UFC 309?
Main event, over 1.5 rounds. Outside of the Cyril Gane fight, the last 10 Jones fights have gone to round 3 or deeper. Bo Nickel, Paul Craig, under 1.5 rounds. Marcus McGee, love this guy, and I think Martinez coming off that Aldo loss is going to be tough for him. Give me Weidman at even money. Anders is slowing down, and I thought Weidman, outside of some eye pokes, looked pretty good against Bruno Silva. Damon Jackson against the older Jim Miller at this point. Miller took so much damage that last fight. And Marcin Tybura is fighting Denise. Please, wrestle, 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 and you win this fight.
It is always such a treat being here in New York for a UFC pay-per-view. It made it the annual trip here in November, but it's, I think, especially sweet getting to see John Jones finally fight in the state of New York. Been waiting for it for years. He's got a big task ahead of him at Stipe Miocic. We will find out what happens in the heavyweight division on Saturday night. And then we will be right back here, UFC Best Bets, next week. Catch us again. Until then, enjoy UFC 309, and hopefully we made you some money.